Good evening and welcome to the Clarity Room, an RWA communications platform where we explore leadership, communication, reputation, and trust, and how better communication can help us lead better. I am Ramoke W. Ahmad, an associate of the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations. This week, we have explored several different aspects of leadership communication. But as I reflected on all our conversation, I realized that there's one idea connecting almost everything we discussed. Leadership becomes most visible when circumstances are not completely under your control. It is easy to communicate when people agree with you. It is easy to maintain relationships when you don't need anything from anyone. It is easy to appear composed when everything is going according to plan. And it is certainly easier to protect your confidence when we are winning. But what happens when people misunderstand us? What happens when an outcome goes against us? What happens when pressure enters the room? What happens when loyalty and good intentions are not enough? And what happens when a door we desperately wanted to walk through suddenly closes? Those are some of the questions Week 9 invited us to examine. Relationship must come before request. One of our major conversations this week was about stakeholders' relationship. Organizations sometimes make a serious mistake. They remember journalists when they need favorable coverage. They remember communities when there's a crisis. They remember employees when they need cooperation. They remember regulators when there's a problem. And suddenly, communication becomes urgent. This is why we introduce the RWA relationship before request principle. Identify, engage, listen, contribute, and maintain. Know your stakeholders before you meet them. Engage them consistently. Listen to what matters to them. Contribute value to the relationship and maintain that relationship even when there is no immediate request to make. Because as we said, the worst time to introduce yourself to a stakeholder is when you desperately need their trust. Trust built under pressure is difficult. Trust built consistently becomes an asset when pressure comes. Communication is not complete because you have spoken. Our communication clinic then examines another leadership problems. The dangerous gap between what you said and what people heard. You have probably heard someone say, "But that is not what I said." And technically, they may be correct. But leadership communication cannot stop at intention. I might know exactly what I intended to communicate, but the person receiving my message had their own experiences, expectations, concerns, and interpretation. So effective communication must travel through 4 stages of intention, message, interpretation, understanding. And the dangerous space is often between message and interpretation. That is communication gap. This means leaders need to stop asking only, "Did I say it?" We also need to ask, "How was it understood?" Because your intention belongs to you. But once your message reaches another person, interpretation begins. That is why feedback matters, clarification matters, listening matters. And sometimes, repeating yourself differently is not weakness. It is responsible communication. Reputation is also revealed in disappointment. Then, we move into reputation matters and examine something that applies far beyond politics. How do you behave when you lose? It might be an election, but it could equally be a promotion, a business bid, a contract, an appointment, a competition, a professional opportunity. People prepare extensively for victory, but very few prepare themselves emotionally and communicatively for disappointment. And that can be dangerous, because one angry statement made immediately after losing can damage a reputation that took years to build. This gave us the RWA dignity and disappointment framework, which is pause, process, respond, appreciate, and reposition. Pause before emotion becomes public communication. Process what happened. Respond with dignity. Appreciate those who supported you. Then reposition yourself for what comes next. Remember, Winning may reveal your capability, losing can reveal your character. Sometimes, the way you carry a disappointing outcome becomes part of your reputation long after people have forgotten the outcome itself. Your emotional temperature affects everyone around you. Friday took us deeper into leadership behavior. We discussed how a leader's emotional temperature can become the team's emotional climate. When something goes wrong, employees watch their leaders. If the leader panics, panic spreads. If the leader starts blaming everyone, people become defensive. If the leader becomes aggressive, communication closes. But if the leader remains grounded enough to acknowledge the difficulty while providing direction, the team has something stable to respond to. That doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. Leadership is not pretending there's no storm. It is communicating the reality of the storm without becoming the storm yourself. And that gave us the RWA Steady Leadership Framework, which is stop, think, evaluate, acknowledge, direct, yield space for response. I particularly want to emphasize that final part, yield space for response. Leadership communication should not always end with the leader speaking. Sometimes you need to stop and hear what the people around you are experiencing because your emotional state affects how safe other people feel to communicate with you. Saturday's experience sharing became more personal. My recent experience in one of the southwestern states left me reflecting deeply about loyalty, political relationship, risks, and independent judgment. I was there to give solidarity and support to someone close to me during an election. The outcome wasn't what we hoped for, but beyond the disappointment, the experience left me thinking about something much bigger. When we take risks, those risks should be calculated. And when we practice loyalty, loyalty should still leave room for wisdom and independent judgment. You can respect someone without inheriting every relationship they have. You can appreciate someone without inheriting every disagreement they have. You can remain loyal without surrendering your ability to assert the environment for yourself. This became our RWA calculated loyalty principle. Assess, read, build, balance, control. Assess the risk, read the environment, build your own relationships, balance loyalty with independent judgment, and focus on what you can actually control. One of the lessons I carried away from that experience is this: loyalty is valuable, but wisdom teaches us not to outsource our judgment. That lesson applies in politics, business, professional relationships, and even our personal lives. Loyalty should not require blindness. Good leadership requires both commitment and discernment. And finally, on a closed door is not your identity. Then on Sunday, our Sunday reflection brought everything back to the individual. What happens after disappointment? Sometimes we attach so much of ourselves to an opportunity that when we lose it, we begin questioning our own worth. But an outcome and your identity are not the same thing. So instead of introducing another framework, I asked us to reflect on three simple questions. What happened? What did it teach me? What will I do next? Those questions move us from disappointment to understanding and from understanding to direction because reflection should eventually produce movement. Yes, examine what went wrong. If your strategy failed, improve it. If you neglected an important relationship, learn from it. If you communicated poorly, correct it. If you were unprepared, prepare better next time. But after taking responsibility for what belongs to you, don't carry what doesn't. And don't allow one unsuccessful outcome to become a permanent definition of who you are. As we reflected today, an outcome can close an opportunity without closing your future. So, what did the week 9 really teach us? When I put all these lessons together, I see one powerful pattern, which is leadership is not tested only when you are standing behind a microphone making an announcement. It is tested in relationships before you need them. It is tested in whether people actually understand what you are communicating. It is tested in how you behave when answer is no. It is also tested in whether you can manage your emotions when everyone else is watching you. It is tested in whether loyalty strengthens or replaces your judgment, and it is tested in whether disappointment teaches you or defines you. This takes me back to one of the central beliefs behind my work. Trust is earned when words and actions speak the same language. We cannot talk about emotional intelligence and become destructive under pressure. We cannot preach stakeholders' engagement and remember people only when we need them. We cannot talk about communication and refuse to clarify when people misunderstand us. We cannot speak about strategic leadership and surrender our judgment in the name of loyalty. And we cannot teach resilience while allowing one closed door to convince us that there will never be another opportunity. That is where leadership communication becomes more than speaking well. It becomes a way of leading. So as we close week 9, I want to leave you with one question. When circumstances move beyond your control, what do your communication, behavior, and decisions reveal about the kind of leader you are becoming? Think about that. Because leadership is often revealed most clearly not in the moments we plan, but in the way we respond to the moments we didn't. I am Ramoke W. Hamad, an associate of the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations, Leadership Communication Strategist, Reputation Management Consultant, Executive Trainer, and Strategic Brand Content Designer. And this has been the Clarity Room from RWA Communications, helping leaders communicate better so they can lead better. Remember, clarity, consistent, credibility. And as I'll always say, building brands, communicating ideas, earning trust. Thank you for joining me for our week 9 recap. I will see you in the Clarity Room.